Welcome back to the Piping Pastor, Theology Talks. Today we'll be offering a salute to our veterans on Veterans Day by having a discussion of returning warriors and the Bible. Well, today I'm enjoying some of that Mylan Joe's blend in my Bilbo Meerschaum. I realize in the books it's only clay or wood, but I'm sure if the Hobbits had access to Meerschaum, they'd have made some Meerschaum pipes too. And just lengthwise, I think it's in the ballpark. After all, if I was the height of an actual Hobbit, this would certainly reach down to my woolly toes, and I would certainly have them neatly brushed. I have been enjoying the Mylan Balkan blend last week. I tried was smoking all week. In point of fact, I don't think I mentioned it in the video where I was at the horse arena with my daughter. That's what I was smoking in my Boswell pipe, was the Balkan blend. It's all right. It's good. I mean, would I buy it again? Nah. I don't regret the fact that I bought it and I enjoyed it, but it was good, just not remarkable. And typically, I only keep tobaccos around that I really enjoy because I don't have a vast cellar like many of you do, which is wonderful. You get a chance to age your tobaccos and have a large selection and so forth. And but my tobacco store is far lower than that. So there's a few that I definitely have backups on. Seattle Pipe Club's Bourbon Barrel Aged Reserve. That is obviously one that I keep at least 3 tins on. The rest of them typically, I'll keep a couple 10s, 2 4 ounces. And then, I like to rotate through. I like to try different stuff. And I don't want to have a huge store of tobaccos that are okay. I'd rather smoke through them and then try something new. We are really blessed in the modern pipe smoking world with all the various different blends that we can try. So that's what I tend to do. So I do have tobacco acquisition disorder, but I don't lay a whole bunch up. So in any case, there will not be sugar crystals on much of my tobacco. I can tell you that. Won't be around that long. More's the petty, I know. In any case, on to our discussion for today. When it comes to war in the Bible, there are a lot of references. If you just search up Bible verses about war, you'll get pages and pages all over the place. Not only in the Old Testament, in the New Testament as well. But there's something in particular that I wanted to touch on today, and that is the returning warrior epic, or, pardon me, my mic started playing with it and it came off. Care for the returning warriors, combat veterans. It seemed especially poignant to have a discussion of that today. Most indigenous societies of various different places around the world have a process for returning warriors, a cleansing reintegration process, and these practices go back for thousands of years. They're exemplified in what are referred to as returning warrior epics. The most famous of which you're probably familiar with is the Odyssey. The Odyssey is a returning warrior epic. It is broken down in stages about how a warrior is meant to return from battle. the different things that a warrior goes through, the different ways that a warrior processes what has happened in combat. Because in combat, things happen that shouldn't. It is not a natural inclination of human beings to kill other human beings. It is a break in our moral understanding of the universe at a very basic level. And in order to go out and do that, people have to get trained. They have to go through processes, to prepare themselves for it. But even leading all the way up to that, and you speak to any combat veteran about this, they'll tell you that the first time that they engage in combat and there's casualties, it's jarring, no matter how well they've been trained. In many cases, it doesn't hit them until much, much later. Because in the throes of combat, they compartmentalize these various different actions so that their automatic responses and their muscle memory of training kicks in so they can get the job done. And then later on, when they have the leisure to sit and think, that's when all the thoughts come up, and that's when you have what's referred to as moral injury, and then, of course, also post-traumatic stress disorder. And a big part of that is because they feel separated when they return from combat. The Returning Warrior epic lays out a way to bring a warrior back from combat so that they're reintegrated in society in a healthy way. And I say the Odyssey is a great example of that. If you read the Odyssey through that lens, reread the Odyssey now through that lens, and think about how he's coming back from war, coming back home, and all the things that he has to go through to get there. But there's other stories from native peoples in South America with returning warriors. There's different practices with the First Nations people of the United States. When warriors would come back, they would be welcomed back by the society and go through a sweat lodge ritual, and there would be a cleansing and a welcoming back in. And we have the same thing in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in Numbers. There is a prescription for when warriors return from battle. They're meant to stay outside the camp for 7 days, purify themselves twice, and then they come back in, and then they offer their offerings at the altar with the rest of the society, and the society welcomes them all back in together. It is a mutual healing of society welcoming the warriors back in. So there's a cleansing and a welcoming back in. And where we have, in large part, let's just say where we've messed up is trying to keep our warriors separated. Instead of welcoming them back in and having them go through a cleansing ritual, they come back in for a redeployment seminar. They try to get through as quickly as possible so they can get home, and then they're given some materials, and then boom, Bob's your uncle, you're done. And then, oh, lo and behold, you have PTSD. Well, here, take some medication. Go to the hospital. Go to this treatment facility over here. They're not welcomed back into society. They're relegated to other areas and other specialities. They're diagnosed so that they can be described as aberrant or something other, or something that needs to be medicated and dealt with for therapy professionals, but not for the rest of society. It gives everyone else in the social circles the opportunity to remove themselves from what happened in combat. If you're a fan of Jungian psychology, you can think of it this way: that the shadow, that dark part of us that wants to harm and destroy and kill, that dark part of us that wants vengeance and so on and so forth, we know it's not right. So we live vicariously through our warfighters when they go off to battle, and we think that's the dark side, and they come back. We don't want to see the dark side. We don't want to see the manifestation of what our thoughts and emotions have brought to bear. It's like when you get into road rage, or you get angry and you lash out, and then afterwards you feel guilty about it. It's that on an epic scale. Only instead of just us lashing out in anger in one moment, it's an entire nation lashing out in anger, and then taking that part of us that engaged in that behavior and shunting it off to the side. We don't want to deal with this. We don't want to face the repercussions of our corporate actions as a society, so we set it over there. And we prescribe some medication, prescribe some therapist. I'm not saying anything against medication and therapy and so on and so forth. Absolutely, I think it's necessary. I think it's helpful. I think the Lord has blessed doctors with wisdom to treat things like this. And of course, TBI and PTSD are diagnosed conditions that do often require intense therapy and medication and so forth. But we shouldn't just leave it at therapy and medication. We should do the hard work of welcoming our combat veterans back, of reintegrating them into our society, welcoming them back home, helping them get through that cleansing ritual, and accepting joint responsibility for what they had to do in combat. Because it wasn't just them out there doing those things, it was them on behalf of everyone else. It's them going out and doing it so the other people don't have to. It's them going out and doing it and bearing that burden. And when they come back, the least we can do is come alongside them and bear the burdens with them. So as you go about Veterans Day today, if you see a veteran, by all means, thank them for their service. But also ask them, have you been welcomed home? Stop for a second. Look a combat veteran in the eye and genuinely ask them, have you been welcomed home? I think you'll be surprised at the reaction. Well, that is it for this time. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Happy Veterans Day to all my viewers who are veterans or active duty service members in any capacity. Have a lovely week, and as always, happy reading.